Hello, everyone. Today is Sunday, April the 18th, and we are going live to talk about the latest updates in the world of immigration to Canada. And I will also talk about the questions that you have, the generic questions that you have about immigration to Canada. My name is Al Parsai. I'm a regulated Canadian immigration consultant. I teach immigration consulting at Ashton College. I'm the author of the bestseller book, 88 Tips on Immigration to Canada. You can find out your purchasing options by visiting any Amazon website or by visiting 88tips.ca. And I have so many news to share with you today. So we'll wait for everybody to join us. And of course, if you have any questions, you can post your questions here. Hello, Hussein. Good to see you here. So if you have any questions, post your questions in the chat box. I will answer those questions after I'm done with sharing with you the updates. And then, of course, we'll go ahead and answer the questions. This session is a 1-hour session. So hopefully I will be able to answer all your questions by the end of the session. First of all, the updates in the world of immigration. The big one, of course, everybody knows about is the latest development in terms of immigration to Canada, that the government of Canada decided to allow 90,000 of temporary residents in Canada to become permanent residents of Canada. So the way that they are going to do this is their focus is on those people who are currently inside Canada. They have valid temporary status and they have also valid work permits and they are currently working in Canada. However, they have divided this group into 3 major groups. One of them is international students. International students are those people who graduated from a school in Canada. And by school, I'm talking about mostly a college or university, a DLI, designated learning institution, that is a college or university in Canada. Some exceptions apply. And they graduated on or after January 2017. And right now, they are holding work permits. They are working in Canada on a temporary basis. They have taken a language test. And by language test, it could be IELTS General, CELPIP General, TEF Canada, or TCF Canada. Regardless of the test that they have taken, their abilities under every skill needs to be CLB 5 or higher. CLB stands for Canada Language Benchmark. So they need to have a test result that is equivalent or higher than CLB 5 under every ability. Again, the international stream is not for somebody who is currently an international student. It's for somebody who has finished their studies inside Canada. They are currently inside Canada with a valid work permit and they are currently working. The work that they are doing cannot be self-employed. It needs to be a paid job for an employer. However, it doesn't matter what kind of job they are doing in Canada. This is for international students. They just want to make sure that the person is currently working in Canada. The other group refers to essential workers and healthcare workers. Essential workers and healthcare workers, unlike international students, they do not need to show 1 year of work permit here in Canada. They do not need to show education in Canada. However, they need to show at least 1 year of full-time work in Canada within the past 3 years. And that work either needs to be under healthcare or under essential works. If you refer to our website, and I have already posted the link below this video, so when we record this video, you can see the link. You can see the list of jobs that are available to people. If you have done any of those, then you could be considered essential workers. But generally speaking, we're talking about the jobs that they kind of need human interaction. And as you know, since the COVID-19 pandemic, human interaction is always dangerous, and many people refrain from doing them. But there are certain people that they are doing those kind of activities, like being a cashier, being a store clerk, those kind of things, and that results in qualification under this program. If you're applying under healthcare stream or under essential worker stream, then your language test result needs to be CLB4 or higher. So if you are not inside Canada, if you do not hold a work permit, if you have not taken a language test with CLB4 or 5, depending on the stream, then do not even think about contacting us or applying. We receive several messages every day since that announcement was made from people that they are outside Canada and they want to use this system. Unfortunately, this option is not available to people who are outside Canada. So that's number one, news number one. News number two is about Caregiver Program. So we have lots of caregiver applications that they are waiting in line and the government is not processing them. So recently the government announced that actually Mr. Mendicino, the Minister of Immigration, announced that they are going to speed up processing the applications of those people who already have applied for caregiver. So we have two major groups under Caregiver Program. Those people who have submitted their initial application to receive an open work permit under Caregiver Pilot and start their work in Canada. Mendicino mentioned that there are currently at least 1,500 of those applications hanging in there waiting for processing. And they are going to process those 1,500 applications by the end of June 2021. So that's great news for those people who have already submitted their applications for the new pilot program under the Caregiver Pilot. If you are not familiar with the Caregiver Pilot, I have two articles on our website. I will do my best to post the links below this video as well. One of them is about people who basically qualified to this program, and the second article is about the process. So you can read those articles. I have actually two videos as well that explain those in details. The other group of caregivers are those caregivers who have met the requirements of permanent residence and they have already submitted their request to the government to become permanent residents of Canada. Right now, we have a backlog of 6,000 applications under that group, and Mendicino, the minister, has promised to process those applications as quickly as possible. How quickly it will be done, we shall wait and see. However, that's good news as well, because it shows that many people who are waiting under the Caregiver Program, they will be also processed. If you don't know about the new caregiver program, as I mentioned, I have articles about Caregiver Program, but I just briefly, before we talk about the CEC, let me just briefly talk about this program. So this program covers two special NOC codes: Home Child Care Provider, or NOC 4411, and the other one is Home Support Worker, or NOC 4412. And the process, the way it goes, is that basically you need to have a job offer from a Canadian employer. So there are three things that you need to have. One of them is educational credential assessment. And that educational credential assessment needs to show that you have at least 1 year of college certificate or college diploma or university degree. So that's at least 1 year of post-secondary education that has resulted in a diploma or certificate. The other one is that you need to take a language test, as I mentioned, IELTS General or CELPIP General or TEF Canada or TCF Canada, and your test results needs to be CLB 5 or higher under every ability, or if you are taking a French test, NCLC 5 or higher. And the third one is that you need to have a job offer from a Canadian employer. And the job offer from a Canadian employer means that somebody who needs an employee under any of those two programs, again, I repeat, home child care provider or home support worker. So if you don't have job offers, if you have not completed your ECA, if you have not ECA educational credential assessments, if you have not taken a language test, then you cannot apply. But if you have all of those, then if you hire us, we will apply on your behalf. Then you submit we submit the application to CPC in Edmonton. They will review the application. If they are satisfied with the job offer and other requirements, then they will issue an open work permit for you. But that open work permit is considered a closed, or sorry, a restricted open work permit. Restricted open work permit means that you can work for any employer in Canada, but that work needs to be under 4411 or 4412. In other words, you need to be either a home child care provider or a home support worker. And also you need to know that foster parents and housekeeping work is not acceptable. And then this means that when you come to Canada, you may start working for the original employer who offered you the job, or you can easily change your employer to another employer. They don't mind. Then you need to work in Canada for 2 years. After you complete 2 years of work experience in Canada, you inform the immigration authorities, and if they're satisfied that you meet all the necessary requirements, they make you a permanent resident of Canada. So it's an interim process for becoming a permanent resident of Canada. You apply for a work permit, you come to Canada, you work as a caregiver, and then after 2 years, you qualify for permanent residence, and you become a permanent resident of Canada. As I mentioned, right now we have 1,500 backlog in terms of those people who initially submitted their applications for their work permits, and about 6,000 people who have already completed and met the requirements, but they have not received their permanent residence. Minister Mendicino has promised that they will process those applications fairly quickly. I'm not done with the news. There are a bunch of, unlike last week, we have so many things going on in the past week. So there are 2 more pieces of news. Hi, Martin. Hi, Mohammed. Again, if you have any questions, feel free to post your questions under the chat box, but I will answer them when I'm done with announcing the news. So the third piece of news is the last draw of express entry. This was relatively quiet because everybody's attention was towards the very fact that Canada wants to allow 90,000 people to immigrate to Canada if they are temporary workers in Canada. However, also, government did a round of invitation under express entry. That round was round number 183. They did it on April 16th, 2021. Actually, they did another round a day before, but that was limited to PNP. But on April 16th, 2021, they did a round of invitation only for Canadian experience class. This time they invited 6,000 people instead of the regular 5,000. So they invited 6,000 people, all under Canadian experience class, and the CRS score dropped to 417. This is the lowest score that I can imagine, other than what happened in February, which was, of course, a weird situation that they invited, if you recall, they invited 27,332 people, and the CRS score at that time dropped to 75. But if we set that aside, 417 is probably the lowest, actually, since May 2018. In May 2018, the CRS score dropped to 413th at 13. And this is the lowest score with the exception of that draw and with the exception of the draw back in February. So 6,000 people were invited to apply. If your score was 418 or higher, then you have definitely been invited. If your score was 417, then it's likely that you were invited. If you submitted your application on or after on or before March 1st, 2021 at 7 p.m. or so. Okay, so that's another piece of news. So that's huge, because now we know that despite the 90,000, because there were some rumors that when the government has invited 90,000 people to become immigrants, they will stop accepting express entry. So this was an answer to those rumors. No, they're not going to stop express entry. They are actually expanding invitations under express entry. However, they're still reluctant in terms of inviting federal skilled worker class or federal skilled trades class. Keep that in mind, that the reason that they are not inviting FSWC or FSTC is because of the fact that the borders are currently closed. If you are not familiar with the situation in Canada, the situation is dire. Unfortunately, we are facing the third round or third wave of COVID-19, and the numbers are just very bad. I mean, in Ontario alone, we see more than 4,000 infections per day, which is huge. We are in a significant lockdown. It means that we cannot even go outside and freely walk. People cannot gather outside, and so on and so forth. And because of that, there are many restrictions on the ports of entry. So if you're outside Canada, even if you become a permanent resident of Canada, it would be extremely difficult for you to be able to travel to Canada, or sometimes it's impossible for you to travel to Canada and become a permanent resident of Canada. That's why the government's attention is right now on inside Canada. However, they have started heavily vaccinating people. In Ontario, for example, they are vaccinating more than 100,000 people per day. And that means that hopefully we will see some good news in terms of reducing the number of cases, reducing the number of hospitalization. And if we reach a point that the government is confident that Canadians are protected, they will gradually open the ports of entry. They allow people to enter Canada, and we will see that federal skilled worker class and also federal skilled trades class will be also included in the rounds of invitation for express entry. I don't think that will happen even within the next 2 months because of the current situation, but hopefully we'll see some movement soon. So again, if you have any questions, post them on the live chat. I have one more piece of news, and then I will start answering your questions. Okay, so the last piece of news is about refugees. So if you're familiar with the refugee system in Canada, you probably know that there are two main ways to become a refugee. One way is that you are displaced from your home country and you are in a third country. You refer to UNHCR or the Refugee Department of the United Nations. They evaluate your situation, and if they find out that you are a convention refugee, Then they will introduce you to different countries who accept refugees. And one of those countries is Canada. So Canada has some government-run programs and some private-run programs that, based on those programs, they resettle refugees from different countries, the people who are already been approved by UNHCR to Canada. So that's the resettlement program, which is an amazing program. Actually, Canada teaches their approach to resettlement to other countries. I believe in 2019, Canada was #1 country in terms of accepting refugees from other countries. And in 2020, the problem was the issue of borders. So resettlement is almost completely stopped, and people are stuck outside Canada and they cannot be resettled. But hopefully, when the borders are open, we will resume resettlement of refugees to Canada. So that's option #1, that you apply to UNHCR. For example, if you are a person from, let's say, Afghanistan, you travel to Turkey and you refer to UNHCR in Turkey, and if UNHCR approves you, then eventually you can be resettled to Canada or another country. Now, usually you get resettled to Canada because you have relatives in Canada, or you clearly mention you want to move to Canada, or there is a support group that resettles you to Canada, for example, charities or churches or mosques that collaborate with the government of Canada to resettle you, or a group of 5 Canadians get together and resettle you to Canada, depending on the situations. I don't want to go into the details of those programs. I already have an article about refugee resettlement program. If you are interested, visit settler.ca and read that article. The other option for applying for a refugee is to directly apply for refugee to Canada. To directly apply for refugee in Canada, either you need to be already inside Canada, or you need to apply at a port of entry. So if you're inside Canada, normally people are inside Canada because they receive a visa or work permit or ETA or study permit. They travel to Canada, they become a worker or a student or a visitor, and then while they are inside Canada, they prepare their package, they go to an inland office and they file for asylum. So that's a common practice for many of people who are already legally entered Canada, or sometimes they irregularly enter Canada through the borders that we have with the United States. So they just don't go to a port of entry. They cross the long border between Canada and the United States. They enter Canada, and then while they are inside Canada, they apply for refugees. So I'm not focusing on that group. Obviously, there has been many changes because of the COVID-19 situation, the way that we apply for that group. I think I have some videos that I explain the situation. Actually, there is one video that I posted about applying for refugee during the COVID-19 era. I have an article about that subject, and of course, I represent many clients in that group. But instead of applying while you are inside Canada, sometimes people apply at a port of entry. For example, they fly over to Canada, and then when they are at the airport, they file for refugee. Now, they could have used a fake document to be able to come to Canada, or maybe they actually received a visa and then they came to Canada, and then at the port of entry, they filed for refugee. One thing that you need to know when you are applying at a port of entry, if you are coming from the United States, you cannot apply for refugee, okay, by default, because we have an agreement with the United States called a Safe Third Country. This is a 16-year-old agreement. We signed this agreement 16 years ago, back in 2005. And based on this agreement, if somebody is in the United States and then they travel to Canada, and at the port of entry, they file for refugee, by default, Canada will send them back to the United States. And the rationale behind this is that in the United States is a country that accepts refugees, and it's a country that is safe for refugees. So there is no reason for you to file for refugee in Canada. Of course, there are some exceptions. For example, if they have a close relative in Canada, their brothers or sisters, for example, are Canadian citizens, in those situations, they will allow them to file for refugee. But generally speaking, they won't allow people to apply for a port of entry refugee application if they are coming from the United States, because the United States is considered a safe third country. Now, during the presidency of Mr. Trump, there were so many concerns about the health of refugees and the healthiness of the refugee system in the United States and how refugees were being treated by the United States. So a group of people, they objected to this third safe country and they requested the government to drop the safe third agreement. The government refused to accept that. So they took the government to court and they actually won the trial court. The federal court says that yes, the United States is no longer a safe third country. So you need to stop the safe third agreement with the United States. However, the government appealed that decision, and that decision went to the Federal Court of Appeal. And of course, the Federal Court of Appeal reviewed the application when Trump is not a president anymore, and Mr. Biden is a president, and they agreed with the government of Canada that the United States is still a safe third country, and they dropped the case. So in other words, the federal government won the case, and unless this case goes to Supreme Court of Canada, the safe third country agreement remains in effect. It means that if you are in the United States, you cannot go to a port of entry and file for refugee unless you have a close family member inside Canada, or for some reason you are exempt from safe third country agreement. So that's the last piece of news that I wanted to share with you. Now we are halfway to the end of our session, so I will go back to the questions and answer those questions. So the first one is by Martin. Martin Boberg says, I do recommend Canada as a great country for seeking asylum. Well, Martin, my position is not to promote Canada in any shape and form, because I'm a practitioner. If people want to come to Canada, by all means, they can come to Canada. And if they want to hire me, they will hire me. I'm pretty sure there are plenty of, bloggers and websites that they talk about the good and the bad and the ugly about Canada. But I'd rather to keep my opinion to myself, not because I don't have an opinion about Canada. I definitely do. Give me a second, I have lights. It's not good enough anymore. Enhance my light. Okay, that's much better. We suddenly lost the light. Okay, so my position is not to promote Canada, whether it's a good country or a bad country, or whether it's a good country for asylum or not. My position is about the law and legislations. So does Canada accept refugees? Yes, we do. And they're usually about 10% of our quota for immigration is allocated to refugees. So refugee applications falls under Section 12 of the Immigration Act. Immigration Act says people could become permanent residents under three major streams: family reunification and economic immigration, and also refugees. So in the past, and by the past I mean around 1970s, 1960s, majority of immigration options were under family reunification, but there was a huge opposition towards that. That's why nowadays most of the people who immigrate to Canada, they immigrate under economic stream, which means they are skilled workers, investors, entrepreneurs. Those people immigrate to Canada. About 60% to sometimes even more, about 55% to 65% of people who immigrate to Canada, they immigrate under economic class. About, roughly speaking, 25 to 35% of people who immigrate to Canada, they immigrate under family reunification, and roughly speaking, about 10 to 20%, depending on the year, they immigrate to Canada as refugees. And of course, they could be resettled to Canada, as I mentioned, or they could file for refugee inside Canada. This is part of the mandate of Canada, humanitarian mandate of Canada to the United Nations. And we accept refugees. If I have a client who files for refugee, I will happily accept the case, and with the exception of resettlement, because this is a completely government-run process, and I prefer to stay away from it. But if somebody is inside Canada and they file for refugee, I represent them. But whether Canada is a good country or bad country for filing for asylum, I would suggest that you look into other people who can be opinionated about this. I'm a practitioner, and I prefer, as much as possible, sometimes I inadvertently promote Canada, but generally speaking, I try to stay away from promoting Canada or talking about Canada as much as possible. So the next one is by Mohammed Sohail. So can the spouse of an international student apply for the open work permit before coming to Canada or after arriving? So generally speaking, Mohammed, the answer is both. They can apply while their spouse applying for a study visa or study permit. You can also submit the application for the spouse, or sometimes the student is in Canada and then apply. It doesn't matter. We can apply. Of course, when I say it doesn't matter from a legal point of view, they can't do that. But from the specificity of the case, obviously, we look into that case to see what would be the best option for the applicant. But generally speaking, yes, they can. So Martin says, I'm right now in Sweden with a deportation order because my asylum application got rejected. Now I want to seek asylum in Canada. I'm gay, by the way. Is my asylum rejection in Sweden going to make me ineligible to seek asylum in Canada? How hard it grants asylum to a member of LGBTQ community, I mean in Canada. So of course I cannot comment on your specific case, but generally speaking, if you are outside Canada, you cannot file for asylum in Canada. Somehow you need to reach Canada and apply, or you need to have an approval from UNHCR. Again, generally speaking, a person who has an approval for asylum from another country cannot file for asylum inside Canada. But if they are refused, generally speaking, they could apply for refugee in Canada, assuming they can come to Canada and apply for refugee. But again, I cannot offer advice for your specific case because I don't know what's going on with your case. In terms of LGBTQ community, of course, Canada was actually, I think, the third jurisdiction in the world that approved marriage rights for same-sex marriage, and that's we are proud of that. Issues like gender identification, gender fluidity, or gender or sexual orientation. These are the hot button issues, of course, but generally speaking, Canada is trying their hard to support them. But whether, again, I cannot promote Canada, whether it's a good country for LGBTQ or not, but what I can say is that we accept applications from LGBTQ community. But of course, again, just because somebody says they are LGBTQ, it doesn't mean that they are LGBTQ. They need to have documentation to prove to the authorities that this is the case. So I'm a PR of Canada and wanted to bring my husband here. How long do I have to wait to process and bring him here? Please know that I came here with my ex-Canadian husband as a PR. So this question is from Etzepotus Berhe. I hope I pronounced your name correctly. Sorry if I didn't. So generally speaking, if somebody was a sponsor to Canada, and there is a 5-year ban on them if they get a divorce and they want to sponsor a new spouse to Canada. And the ban begins from the day that they land in Canada to the day that they want to apply. But if that person was accompanying their spouse under for example, in economic immigration, there is no ban. So my recommendation to you, because I cannot offer immigration advice here, my recommendation to you is get in touch with us privately. You can book a consultation session with me. And my consultation sessions are not free, but at least you can receive good advice on your circumstances and decide what to do. Or if you want to hire us, again, you can get in touch with us and privately. So I have already posted the link to private communications under this video, but you only will see it when I save it. But believe me, it's so easy to find how to get in touch with us. Just Google Parsai Immigration Services, and you will find how to contact with us. Okay, so the next question is from Zaidi Abdul Udud. Hello, Zaidi. Good to see you again. I would like to know if you have any new information about if an asylum seeker could enter the express entry pool. Thank you. So generally speaking, the issue with asylum seekers is that they do not have a status in Canada. And when you do not have a status in Canada, it makes it so difficult to apply for any immigration option to Canada. Most of the immigration options, they ban you from applying. For example, with this 90,000 immigration options that we talked about, it is banned. With the or for example, with majority of PNP options, again, it is banned. So you need to look into basically to all the limitations that they exist in Canada. And the same thing obviously works for express entry, because you do not have a temporary status in Canada, and because you don't have a valid status in Canada, you are not allowed to enter the pool of express entry, okay? And it's very unfortunate. These are the discussions that, of course, the immigration consultants need to have with their, or immigration lawyers, they need to have with the applicants. They need to let them know that when you enter the refugee process, that's the option that you enter to, okay? So you will take away your many other opportunities because of refugee cases. And that's not just it. When you become a refugee in Canada, even if you become a permanent resident of Canada, you cannot travel back to your home country, because you mentioned that your life was in danger. So if you travel back to your home country, then the perception is that those dangers have gone away, and the government can actually take you to the court and revoke your permanent residence. So it's important that when people decide to fight for refugee, first of all, know the consequences. And obviously, it needs to be a truthful filing. Also, there are many statistics from different countries. You need to know whether your country is one of those countries that your chances are low for refugee. For example, if you are an American citizen, Canada accepts refugees from the United States. But out of, for example, 500 people that they apply for a refugee or asylum in Canada every year, probably 2 to 5 of them are approved. And the other 495, they are refused. But if you are somebody from Iran, then out of every 100 people who apply for refugee, about 90 of them will be accepted. So it depends on the country of your origin. It depends on many other elements that decides whether you could qualify or not. People who, okay, then Martin continues asking questions. But are people who immigrate illegally eligible to apply for asylum? Just to make it clear, is a person with asylum rejection in Europe eligible to apply for asylum in Canada if they arrived to Canada from Europe? So basically, look, I don't want to go into the detail of illegally entering Canada, because if you try to illegally move to Canada, I don't call it illegally, it's called irregularly. That means that that is involved with human smuggling or even human trafficking. And those are very severe, basically, offenses in Canada. So anybody who gets involved with human smuggling people from another country to Canada, then they could face up to 14 years in prison. And people who are involved with, in certain cases, they could even face life in prison. And the same thing is for human trafficking. So obviously, I cannot, beyond what my knowledge is based on the law, so I have no comments on irregularly entering Canada. But if somebody somehow shows up at the port of entry and they file for refugee, they can apply for refugee. The only country that we have the safe third country agreement with right now is the United States of America. But again, I must emphasize, I cannot offer you immigration advice on this platform because I don't know the specifics of your case. Okay, so the next question is from Tony Pacheco. So hi, what is the current backlog for Inside Canada Family common law processing time? So the backlog, I don't have the statistics, but what we know is that they are relatively being processed relatively okay. So the processing time is supposed to be under 12 months. And right now, the processing time for most of those applications is around 15 months to 18 months. So in other words, we are seeing a delay of 3 to 6 months for most applications. Now, there might be some exceptions that they are processed sooner than 12 months, and some exceptions that they are being processed more than 18 months. But my last case that was concluded, they were waiting for about 15 months. The case before that was close to 18 months. So sometimes more, sometimes less. And generally speaking, CPC in Mississauga is right now not very active, and especially because the current situation of coronavirus, I'm pretty sure it becomes even less active in the next 4 to 6 weeks, and that causes delays. And for inland cases, they will go to CPC in Mississauga, a case processing center in Mississauga. That's why you will face some delays. But anyways, if you want your loved one to become permanent residents of Canada, what are your chances? You won't say, oh, because it's going to take 2 years, I'm not going to apply for her or him. You know what I mean? So you got to do what you got to do and hope for the best. But generally speaking, it takes a while for them to process those applications. And so the next question is from Remo Analuam. Hi, sir. What about those outland applications with PR application process waiting for approval? As we know that Canada focuses only inland applicants. I'm in healthcare with job offer 4412 outland. So yes, so if you are receiving a job offer from 4412, this is what, if you have applied under the caregiver option. So if you have applied under the caregiver option, the government has promised to process those applications by the end of June. So hopefully you will see some news, good news, in about 2.5 months or sooner. This is the promise that Minister Mendicino gave. But in reality, what's going to happen, I don't know. If you are not a caregiver, then that's a different story. Many of the outside offices, because if you applied under caregiver, your application is currently inside CPC Edmonton, and somehow they want to enable CPC Edmonton. I don't know how, because I have applications stuck in CPC Edmonton, and so far, no matter how many times we get in touch with them, they haven't responded. But it looks like it that they probably either want to activate CPC Edmonton, or they have made some other arrangements in terms of processing those applications. So we keep our fingers crossed that your application will be processed soon. But if you have applied for another stream of immigration or work permit, and that application is in your outside Canada visa office, then unfortunately that all depends on those offices. For example, right now, in some of the countries like Brazil, like India, like Poland, the situation is very bad, and majority of visa offices are either not working or they are working very slowly, and that means huge delays in terms of processing those applications. So Martin says, what kind of accommodations do asylum seekers get in Canada? Where do they get settled while waiting for their application decision and after it? So basically, Canada does not have any camps for refugees. They don't put the refugees in a camp. So if the refugee has a place to stay, they go and stay in that place. It could be relatives or friends. They could go and stay with them. If they don't have a place to stay, then we have some housing options that they are being offered by provinces of Canada, and they will receive a housing from a province. And in terms of financials, refugees are eligible to apply to receive work permits in Canada, and when they receive their work permits, they are allowed to work inside Canada. And that's basically what is happening. But if a refugee cannot work for any reason, then in that situation, they are eligible to apply for social welfare, and they could receive social welfare. I don't have any comparison between Canada and Europe, but social welfare in Canada is basically, it covers basic requirements, for example, food and shelter and those kind of things. So Yusuf says, hi dear, I would like to ask you a question about Group 5. When you file application, how long usually take to get file number? So unfortunately, Yusuf, I don't deal with refugee resettlement programs, as I mentioned earlier in this video. I don't have hands-on experience in terms of the process, but what I can say is that right now, resettlement takes a very, very long time. So in the past, the last updates that I had was that the resettlement could take anywhere between 1.5 years to 3 years. Nowadays, it could take way longer. But again, maybe I'm mistaken because I do not do practice resettlement. And that's why I do not know the very exact statistics. I don't follow the statistics on refugee resettlement to Canada. Having said that, we know that because of the closure of the borders right now, the situation is not that good. Okay, so the next question comes from Remo. I'm under AIPP home support worker. My AOR received last now 2020, direct PR without work permit. Currently, I'm in Middle East. So Remo, in that situation, if it's for work permanent residence, this is again based on the announcement by the minister. They said that we have a backlog of 6,000 people, and they are going to speed up processing those applications. Again, because you're outside Canada, you may encounter more delays comparing to people who are inside Canada, because even if they issue you a permanent residence, you cannot travel to Canada. I mean, I had a client from Australia that he received his COPR. He wanted to travel to Canada in January, and guess what? They even canceled his flight to Canada. So unfortunately, right now, the situation for people who are outside Canada to become permanent resident is not very good. But again, be faithful, it will eventually happen. I mean, as a person who practices immigration and as an immigrant who has been living in Canada for the past almost 2 decades, I can tell you that sometimes it may take a very, very long time for people to reach Canada. But if they meet the requirements and if something unexpected doesn't happen, you eventually become a permanent resident. So I'm hoping that you will receive good news soon. So what's the next question is from Shivatal. What's the future of business immigration in Canada? Are we going to see more options in coming months? So in terms of business immigration, when it comes to direct immigration under the federal programs, no, the federal government has no appetite to accept business people. In fact, even when they announced the targets for 2020, they said we are going to accept 401,000 immigrants. They pretty much increased their capacity under every immigration option, but the business immigration. The target for 2021 for business immigration is only 1,000. And that is a split between federal self-employed class and the startup visa. And these are the only business options that we have under federal programs right now. So this means that there is no appetite to accept business people under federal programs. However, there are alternatives. Those alternatives are fully active. So one alternative would be provincial programs. So provinces like Manitoba, Saskatchewan, British Columbia, Ontario, etc., they accept business people, and you could immigrate through those programs. But through those programs, you receive a work permit first, with the exception of New Brunswick. You receive a work permit first, you come to Canada, you work under that work permit, and after a while, you qualify for permanent residence. Another alternative would be IMP C11 or International Mobility Program C11. I have written articles about that and videos and everything, so I don't want to repeat that, but I just post this here. You can look it up, IMP C11. You will see my article on the first page of Google if you search it up. But at the end of the day, you receive a work permit in Canada as a business person, as an entrepreneur, as a self-employed person. You come to Canada, you commence your work here in Canada, and then after a while, you could qualify to immigrate under express entry or under one of the provincial options. So this is available. But in terms of generic business immigration to Canada, the government of Canada has shown no appetite in increasing the acceptance of business immigration. The province of Quebec used to accept investors, and they actually had an investors program but guess what? They suspended that program back in July 2019. They were going to open that program in April 2021, but they decided to suspend it for another 2 years. So the investor program for Quebec is on suspension at least until April 2023. Whether they will reopen it or not, I don't know. When we encounter such a long suspension, it's very likely they are not going to reopen it. But let's wait and see. There is a program for self-employed people under Quebec, but that program only accepts 50 people per year. So it's a very limited program for immigration. I do not do practice Quebec, but if you are interested in that program, self-employed for Quebec, get in touch with us. We have a partner He's an immigration lawyer, and through them, we can apply for you for the program. So that was this. Where else? So Hossein Mamadi, how long is the PR progress after granting asylum in Toronto right now? Well, it depends. Let's put it that way. It could take a year, 2 years, generally between 1 to 2 years. There could be some exceptions that they could receive their PR less than a year, or it could be sometimes more than 2 years. But the good news is that you will have your work permit while you are waiting for the application to be processed. But unfortunately, it takes a while. It's not quick for most people. Now, there are, especially nowadays, because of coronavirus situation, it will take a while for them to process your application. So there is another question by Murad. I have been waiting for decision application ARC 16 month. I'm trying to visit my wife. I sent all documents to London. My question is, as a Swedish citizen, IRCC process my ARC in London or Stockholm, Sweden. First of all, I'm very sorry to hear that. Yes, unfortunately, the processing. So for those people who don't know what ARC is, the ARC stands for Authorization to Return to Canada. These are for people who have been removed from Canada by an exclusion order or a deportation order, sorry, just got distracted. So basically, it takes a while for the government to process those applications. I also have many ARC applications that are stuck in different visa offices, and those visa offices are very slow in processing ARC applications, and especially, unfortunately, because of the very fact that the immigration authorities right now are focusing on other kinds of applications. In terms of which visa office is responsible for Sweden, it's the visa office in London. So you are dealing with the correct visa office. Of course, you can send them follow-up requests to see what's going on with your application. If you do not have a representative and you want to hire us to take over your application, just send me a private message. As I mentioned, you can privately get in touch with us by visiting settler.ca, and then when we can file for an ATIP request, see what's going on with that application after receiving your GCMS records, then we can decide how to move forward. But that's unfortunate because the situation is bad, Mora. So Victoria Green, I want to invite, and we have only less than 3 minutes left. So I have 2 more questions. I will quickly try, or actually 3 now. I want to invite my boyfriend from Southeast Asia first to visit me in Canada to see if we still fit together, didn't see each other since end of 2018, and potentially to marry him. How soon is this possible? So Victoria, generally speaking, Canada does not support Fiance Visa, and they didn't issue visas for those group at all. But they made some changes because of COVID-19 for conjugal visits, and they could make exceptions. But the person needs to show that they have been in relationship for at least 1 year, and they have physically seen each other in person. If you're interested, because I cannot comment on your specific case, but if you're interested, just leave us a private message and we can send you a proposal. If you're interested, you can hire us and we can help you. Of course, if we see that you qualify under the program that I mentioned. And then Remo says, okay, sir, thanks for the answer. Very informative. Oh, thank you very much, Remo. The next question is from, again, Hossein Mamadi. Can I start studying by paying PR holders tuition fee after the asylum is granted to me before my PR card progress is done? So Hossein, that's the policy by the university or college. So you need to get in touch with the university and college and ask them So this is my situation. Do you accept to give me local discount based on my current situation? And they will decide what to do. The university and college, they have their own policies, and based on their own policies, they will accommodate you. Okay, so I cannot talk on behalf of universities and colleges. So this is not something from the government of Canada. Keep that in mind. This is something by the policies of those colleges and universities, which person they consider international student, which person they consider local, to which people they offer bursary or offer scholarship or not. These are their own policies. So I highly recommend that you get in touch with the university or college that you're interested, get in touch with them, explain your situation, and ask them about their policies or the kind of discounts or pricing that they can offer you. So Victoria Green says, should I mention this on my invitation or stay? So unfortunately, I cannot offer you immigration advice for your case. So I cannot tell you because I don't know anything about you. If I tell you, oh yeah, you should mention this on your letter or you shouldn't mention that on your letter, then it doesn't make sense because it may turn out to be a wrong answer. And the second thing is that I'm an immigration consultant. I make money from offering consultation. So as long as the questions that are here are generic, I will happily answer them. But if it becomes specific to a case, unfortunately, I won't answer them here. You can get in touch with us privately if you want to hire us, and we will happily take over the case and help you with that process. So Rupesh says, it's always a pleasure to see you. Thank you very much. And the question is that I have to submit my proposal on entrepreneur proposal with a business idea. So please get in touch, Rupesh, with us privately, and we go ahead with that. Oh, hi, Andy. Good to see you here. Okay, thank you very much, everybody. We are at the end of our 1 hour. I have a consultation session coming soon. Yes, I have a consultation session on a Sunday. So, and I have to write a couple of articles. But again, thank you very much. You can support me by buying my book, 88 Tips on Immigration to Canada. It is available on Amazon.ca or any Amazon websites, or you can visit 88tips.ca and to find out about your purchasing options. It is available in paperback, and it's also available in as ebook on Amazon websites, on Kindle website. My name is Al Parsai. I'm a regulated Canadian immigration consultant. I teach immigration consulting at Ashton College. And as I showed to you, I have written basically over 1,300 articles about immigration to Canada. I've been practicing for the past 10 years. If you are willing to hire me as your immigration consultant, please get in touch with me. And again, I will post videos, 3 videos per week on Mondays, Wednesdays, and Fridays. So please watch those videos as well. Subscribe to our channel, share those videos with your friends and family members, and encourage them to subscribe to our channel. We will have live sessions every Sunday on YouTube. And if you speak Farsi or Persian, I also run live sessions on our Instagram channel in Farsi language every Friday at 10 a.m. EST. And our Sunday sessions on YouTube, which is in English, obviously, it will be every Sunday at 10 a.m. EST. Again, thank you very much. I love you. See you next week.